All right, everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to be diving deep into project schedule management.
Ooh, exciting.
Yeah, and to do that, we are going to be using the PMBOK guide as our main source.
Of course, the project management body of knowledge, a classic.
Absolutely. So if you're out there and you're thinking about tackling a new project, maybe it's a big one, maybe it's a small one.
Doesn't matter, size doesn't matter.
Right, exactly. But, you want to be sure that it stays on track, that you meet your deadlines.
You don't want any of those deadline nightmares.
Exactly. Well, this is the deep dive for you because we're going to talk all about project schedule management.
And the PMBOK actually does a really good job of breaking this whole process down into 6 key processes.
Okay, so 6 processes, that seems manageable. Break it down for us.
So it starts with plan schedule management.
Okay, plan schedule management, that sounds like,
Getting everyone on the same page.
getting organized from the beginning.
Yeah, setting those ground rules, figuring out how you're going to develop the schedule, how you're going to monitor it, how you're going to control it.
I like it. So it's like the constitution for the schedule of the project.
Yeah, I like that, the scheduling constitution.
Perfect. So what's next?
All right, so after you've got your plan in place, you move on to define activities.
Define activities.
It's reasonably self-explanatory.
Yeah, I was going to say, it sounds pretty straightforward.
It does, but it's really important because this is where you take that big project and you break it down into those manageable chunks.
Like a to-do list.
Like a super detailed to-do list. And trust me, the more detailed your activity list is, the better off you're going to be.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
All right, so we've got our plan, we've got our to-do list. Now what?
Now, you can't just jump in and start doing things randomly. You've got to figure out the order, the logical flow of the work, and that's where sequence activities comes in.
Okay, sequence activities, so like what comes first, what comes second.
Exactly, and this is all about dependencies. Like, you wouldn't paint the walls before you build the foundation.
Right, got to have the foundation first.
Exactly, that's your classic finish to start dependency. One task has to finish before the next one can begin.
So we're not just making a list, we're making a flow chart, almost.
Yeah, you got to understand how all those tasks are connected.
Okay, I'm with you. So what's next in this project management journey?
Okay, so now that you know the order, you got to figure out how long each activity is going to take, and that's where we get to estimate activity durations.
Estimate activity durations. Okay, now this is where I could see some projects getting
A little tricky because it's not just about picking numbers out of thin air. You have to consider your resources, you have to think about skill levels, you've got to account for potential risks.
You've got to think about worst case scenario, best case scenario.
Exactly. And even something like the law of diminishing returns can come into play.
Law of diminishing return.
Yeah, have you ever heard of that?
I have, but why don't you remind us what that is?
Sure. So imagine you're trying to speed up a project by throwing a ton of people at it.
More hands make lighter work, right?
Well, not always. At some point, adding more people actually slows things down because you have more communication overhead, you have more dependencies.
Too many cooks in the kitchen.
Exactly. It's like trying to fit too many cooks in the kitchen.
So adding more people doesn't always mean it gets done faster.
Sometimes it can actually make it slower.
So it sounds like estimating activity durations is a little bit more art than science.
It's a bit of both, for sure.
Okay, all right. So we've got the durations. What's next?
Now we've got to take all those pieces and put them together into a schedule, and that's where we get to develop schedule.
Okay, so we're finally creating a schedule.
We're building that timeline, yeah.
So how do we do that?
Well, you've got to bring together all those individual pieces, the activities, the durations, the resource requirements, and you put them into a schedule model, like, a Gantt chart or something like that.
And that's where we would use like the critical path method.
Exactly. The critical path method helps you identify those tasks that have zero wiggle room, meaning if they get delayed, the whole project gets delayed.
The pressure points.
Yeah, the pressure points of your schedule.
Got it. So we've got our schedule, but schedules change, right?
Oh, absolutely. Things happen, unexpected roadblocks pop up, and that's where the final process comes in, control schedule.
Okay, control schedules. So this is about
staying flexible,
being adaptable,
monitoring your progress, identifying any variances from the plan, and then taking corrective action to get things back on track.
So it's not just about setting the schedule and forgetting it.
No, you've got to actively manage it.
You've got to be paying attention. You've got to be willing to make adjustments.
Exactly.
Got it. So those are the 6 key processes of project schedule management, according to the PMBOK.
That's right.
But it's more than just these 6 processes, right?
Oh, yeah. There's a lot more to it. There are all these different concepts and techniques that can help you refine your approach.
Like what? Give us an example.
Well, we talked about the critical path method, but there are also all these different scheduling methodologies out there, especially in the world of Agile project management, which is becoming very popular these days.
Agile. Everyone's talking about Agile. So how does scheduling change when you're working in an Agile environment?
Agile is all about embracing change, being adaptable.
Rolling with the punches.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So instead of trying to plan the entire project up front, you work in shorter cycles called sprints or iterations.
So it's a more flexible approach.
Much more flexible.
Okay, so we're not trying to control every detail.
Nope. You're embracing uncertainty. You're prepared to adjust as you go.
Sounds like it takes a certain type of personality to thrive in an Agile environment.
It does. But the results can be amazing.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground in this first part of our deep dive.
We have.
We've outlined the 6 key processes, we've touched on some important concepts, and we've even gotten a taste of Agile scheduling.
And we've only just scratched the surface.
There's so much more to explore.
So much more. We need to unpack those schedule compression techniques. We need to dive into resource optimization. And we've got to talk about how to tailor project schedule management to different environments.
And I'm really interested in learning more about the role of the project manager in Agile settings. That sounds fascinating.
It is. It's a whole new way of thinking about leadership.
Well, I'm excited to dive into all of that in our next segment, but for now,
We'll leave you with a little bit to think about.
we've laid the groundwork for understanding the core principles of project schedule management.
And in the next part, we'll start building on that foundation, exploring those techniques and challenges in more detail.
So until next time, keep those project timelines in check.
And those deadlines in sight.
All right, welcome back to our deep dive into project schedule management.
Back for more scheduling fun.
That's right. So last time we kind of laid out the roadmap. We talked about those 6 key processes from the PMBOK guide.
The 6 commandments of scheduling.
Exactly. But now we're going to zoom in a little bit. We're going to get into the nitty-gritty of some of the techniques and challenges.
You're going to start putting those pieces together.
Exactly. And speaking of putting things together, one of those key processes was sequence activities.
Figuring out the order, the flow.
Right. But I'm curious, what are some of those common pitfalls that people run into when they're trying to sequence activities?
Well, one mistake I see a lot is people jumping into sequencing before they've really clearly defined their activities.
Oh, okay. So you're saying.
It's like trying to arrange furniture in a room before you know what furniture you even have.
So you end up with a sofa in the bathroom.
Exactly. You don't want the fridge in the living room.
Not ideal, for sure.
Another pitfall is neglecting dependencies.
Ah, yes, dependencies. We talked about those.
Right. That finish to start relationship.
One task has to be done before the next one can begin.
Exactly. If you don't account for those dependencies, you can end up with bottlenecks, delays down the line.
So it's not just about having a list of tasks. It's about understanding.
The web of connections.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
And just to add another layer, those dependencies, they can be mandatory.
Okay. Mandatory.
There's discretionary.
Okay.
Mandatory dependency, non-negotiable. You got to pour the foundation before you can frame the walls.
Right, yeah.
But a discretionary dependency, that's based on best practices or preferences.
Okay.
Like deciding, do you install the kitchen cabinets before or after the bathroom fixtures?
I see. Okay, so there's a lot of nuance to this.
There's a lot to think about. It's not just black and white.
So once we've mapped out all those dependencies, then it's time to figure out how long each of those tasks is going to take.
Estimate activity durations. That's right.
Right. And this is where I imagine, experience really comes into play.
Experience, intuition, a little bit of both.
But we're not just relying on gut feelings, are we?
No, the PMBOK, it gives us a whole toolkit of estimation techniques.
Okay, so what are some of those techniques?
Well, we talk about analogous estimating.
Using data from past projects.
Exactly. That's great for a quick ballpark.
But it only works if you have good data.
Right. Your historical data has to be accurate.
Makes sense.
Then there's parametric estimating that uses algorithms, statistical relationships.
That sounds a little more
complex.
Yeah.
It can be more accurate, but it requires more upfront work.
more data, more analysis.
Exactly. And then there's 3-point estimating, which I really like.
3-point? I don't think we talked about that one.
So with 3-point, you consider the best case scenario,
Oh,
the worst case scenario, and then the most likely scenario.
so you're kind of hedging your bets a little bit.
You're taking into account that uncertainty.
I like it.
It helps you manage risk.
So which technique is the best one to use?
It really depends, on the project, on the available data.
How much risk you're willing to take?
Exactly. Sometimes it's even a good idea to use a combination of techniques.
Oh, okay. So you can kind of mix and match.
You can get creative, use what works best for the situation.
Now, I remember you mentioned the law of diminishing returns last time.
Ah,
How does that come into play when we're estimating activity durations?
it's a good reminder that adding more resources doesn't always equal faster completion.
Right, because sometimes you add more people and it actually slows things down.
Exactly. Too many cooks in the kitchen.
Too many cooks in the kitchen, exactly.
If you're trying to write a report, two people might be able to collaborate effectively,
Right.
but you add 10 more writers, and you're going to spend more time coordinating.
Merging all those different voices.
Exactly. More time managing than actually doing the work.
So it's about finding that sweet spot.
The right balance of resources.
Okay, so we've estimated our durations for all our activities. Now it's time to actually build the schedule, right?
Time to develop the schedule. That's right.
So we're taking all these pieces, the activities, the durations, dependencies, resources, we're putting them all together.
It's like assembling a giant jigsaw puzzle.
A puzzle with a lot of moving parts.
Exactly. And that's where those what if scenarios come in handy.
What if scenarios? So this is where we try to anticipate problems.
You try to model different situations, like what if a key resource becomes unavailable?
Or what if a vendor is late with the delivery?
Exactly. You can run these simulations.
So we're kind of playing out different possibilities.
You're trying to identify risks, develop contingency plans.
So it's like a crystal ball for your project.
I like that, a crystal ball.
Except instead of seeing the future, we're creating different possible futures.
That's a good way to put it.
And one of the most important tools for navigating those different futures, I think, is the critical path method.
Ah, yes, the critical path.
We talked about it a little bit last time, but can you remind us how that works in practice?
So imagine your project schedule is like a network of interconnected tasks.
Okay, I can visualize that.
The critical path is the longest path through that network, and it represents the shortest possible time to complete the project.
Okay, so any delay on the critical path
Pushes out the whole project.
delays the whole project.
Exactly. So you really have to keep an eye on those critical tasks.
So it's not just about identifying the most important tasks. It's about understanding which tasks have the biggest impact on the timeline.
Exactly. You got to focus your attention on those critical tasks, mitigate those risks.
Makes sense. So alongside the critical path, what other tools or techniques can we use to create a really solid, realistic schedule?
Well, there's resource leveling and resource smoothing.
Oh, yes, resource optimization. I've heard of that.
These techniques help you make the most of your resources.
So resource leveling is about,
Adjusting those start and finish dates so you don't overload your resources.
so you're preventing those crunch times.
Exactly. You want to avoid those all-nighters if you can.
Sure. And what about resource smoothing?
Resource smoothing is about keeping that resource usage consistent.
Okay, so it's about having a sustainable pace of work.
You want to keep the project orchestra playing in sync.
I like that analogy, the project orchestra, everyone playing their part.
Exactly. And you don't want anyone getting burnt out.
All right, so we've got resource leveling, resource smoothing, anything else.
Well, and this is all a lot to keep track of, right?
It is. It sounds pretty complex.
That's why we have project management tools.
Technology to the rescue.
Software can help us manage all these moving parts, keep track of the dependencies, the resources, the critical path.
Makes sense. So once we've done all of that, we have what's called the schedule baseline, right?
The schedule baseline, yeah, that's the approved version of your schedule model.
So this is like the official roadmap for the project.
It's the benchmark against which you're going to track your progress.
Okay, so it's important to get it right.
It's important, but it's not set in stone. Things can change.
But you can't just change it on a whim.
No, any changes have to go through a formal approval process.
Change management, right?
Exactly. That helps maintain the integrity of the baseline.
So if I could summarize what you've said so far about develop schedule, it's not just about plotting tasks on a timeline. It's about
Analysis, collaboration, a willingness to adapt,
it's about using the right tools and techniques.
and finding that balance between planning and flexibility.
Planning and flexibility, that seems to be a recurring theme here.
It's essential for success in project management.
All right, well, we've really unpacked develop schedule in this segment.
We've gone deep.
But we're not done yet, are we?
We're not done. We still need to talk about how to control the schedule, how to keep things on track.
All right, that's what we'll dive into next time. But for now, we'll leave our listeners with this idea of finding that balance.
Between planning and flexibility, rigor and adaptability.
Because that's what it takes to navigate the complexities of project schedule management. All right, welcome back, everyone, for the final part of our deep dive on project schedule management.
The grand finale.
That's right. And, we've spent the last two segments really getting into the details of how to develop a project schedule.
From defining those activities to sequencing them, estimating how long they're going to take.
Creating that schedule baseline.
We've laid the groundwork.
We have, but As anyone who's ever managed a project knows,
Things don't always go according to plan.
never. Never quite like that, so that's where a control schedule comes in.
That's right, the final process in the PMBOK framework.
And this is all about
Staying vigilant, monitoring your progress,
making sure you're still on track,
identifying those variances from the plan.
taking corrective action when you need to.
It's like your project's navigation system.
I like that. So we're not just setting the schedule and forgetting it,
No, you got to stay active. You got to manage it.
actively managing it. So how do we actually do that? What are some of the tools and techniques that we can use to control the schedule?
Well, data analysis is crucial.
Data analysis, of course, got to have the data.
You got to know what's going on, so you track those key metrics, and you use tools like earned value analysis.
Earned value analysis. We've heard that term a couple times.
Yeah, and it can sound a little intimidating,
It can?
but it's really about understanding if you're getting the value you expected for the time and money you've invested.
So like halfway through the project, have you done half the work?
Exactly. Are you on track? Are you overspending?
It's like checking your project's bank balance,
That's a good way to put it.
making sure you're not in the red.
Exactly.
All right, so data analysis is important. What else?
Communication. Communication is key.
Of course. Can't forget about communication.
You got to keep those stakeholders informed, address their concerns, make sure everyone's on the same page.
Regular status updates, meetings, that kind of thing.
Exactly. Clear communication can prevent a lot of headaches down the road.
For sure, for sure. So let's say we're analyzing the data, we're communicating effectively, but we realize that the schedule needs to be adjusted. What do we do then?
That's where those schedule control techniques come in.
Okay, so we can tweak things.
You can adjust task durations, you can resequence activities, and if you absolutely have to, you can use those schedule compression techniques we talked about earlier.
Crashing and fast tracking.
Those are the big guns.
The emergency options.
Right, and they should be used sparingly.
Because they come with risks.
Crashing can increase your costs. Fast tracking can increase your risk.
Right, so you got to weigh those trade-offs carefully.
And sometimes the best option is just to accept a delay and adjust the overall project timeline.
Sometimes you just got to roll with the punches.
Exactly.
So it's about making those smart decisions, understanding the situation, and the consequences of your actions.
Making informed decisions, that's a big part of project management.
For sure, and another important aspect of controlling the schedule is change management.
Change management, yes. Any changes to the baseline need to go through a formal approval process.
So we can't just go around changing the schedule whenever we want.
No, there's a process for a reason.
Keeps things organized.
Maintains the integrity of the baseline.
So it sounds like control schedule is really the glue that holds this whole process together.
It's what keeps the project on track.
Makes sense. Now, I know we focused a lot on traditional project management, but what about Agile environments? How does schedule control work in Agile?
Great question. And in Agile, we're still concerned about managing the schedule, but our approach is much more iterative, much more flexible.
Right, because we're working in those short sprints or iterations.
Exactly. And we're constantly adapting based on new information.
So the schedule is more of a living document.
It's constantly evolving.
So those Agile scheduling techniques like iterative scheduling and on-demand scheduling, they come into play here,
They help us stay flexible.
while still making progress towards our goals.
Right, and we still use data analysis, but we're looking at different metrics, things like burn down charts and velocity tracking.
So we're still monitoring performance, making informed decisions.
Just in a different way.
And communication is still key, right?
Absolutely, you got to keep the team informed, facilitate collaboration, address any issues that pop up.
So whether we're talking about traditional project management or Agile, the core principles of schedule control, they're still essential.
Monitoring, analyzing, communicating, making those informed decisions, it all matters.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive.
We've explored a lot.
We've talked about the 6 key processes from the PMBOK guide,
We've looked at traditional and agile approaches.
and we've highlighted all those important tools and techniques.
That's a lot to take in.
It is, but I think it's been really valuable. I feel like I have a much better understanding of project schedule management now.
Me too, and it's such an interesting field. It's a blend of science and art
It takes a lot of skill,
and adaptability,
patience,
a sense of humor.
a sense of humor, yes, absolutely, because things rarely go exactly as planned.
That's for sure.
Well, I want to thank you for sharing your expertise with us today. I've learned a lot.
It's been my pleasure.
And to all of our listeners out there, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the world of project schedule management.
We hope you enjoyed it.
Until next time, may all your projects be on time, on budget, and exceeding expectations.
Cheers to that